Welcome one and welcome all. Yours truly, Maponga J from Farmers of Thought, from the Pan-African space. Our business is to talk and discuss and have a new direction, a new dispensation of introducing new leaders. We don't need a new Africa at all. Africa has always been here and she's not going anywhere. We need new leaders in Africa who are aware of where we're coming from, clear of where we are, and very, very persuasive into where we are going. We've worked for the longest of time with political liberation leaders who shot guns and bullets and bombed our places, and they managed to restore our dignity in terms of winning the war. But after winning the war, what we now need are economic soldiers who are able to apply their minds to the bullets of the economy. And I think Africa, for the longest of time, religion has become one way of pacifying people, creating lots of prayer warriors. And some of the prayers that we're offering in our churches are just a result of poor governance. We don't need God to answer those questions. Our politicians, together with our economists, can actually bring this thing to a standstill, to rewrite the narrative that we want. As part of our movement right here on Pan-African space, especially on Farmers of Thought, we have been walking around the greater southern region. Botswana, did some stuff there. South Africa, did some stuff. Namibia, did some stuff. Of course, Zimbabwe, we did some stuff. We're managing some spaces in Mozambique. Burkina Faso is on standby. Uganda is on standby. Kenya with the Gen Zs, we're involved. We won't mention how, but seriously, we're interested. And we will not stop the revolution in our generation. We need to leave a good inheritance for our children. And while we're on that, we're right here in Nyasa land, as we usually know it, but now known as Malawi, which is northern parts of Rhodesia. And with me is Dr. Dalitso Kabambe.
Yes.
Dr. Dalitso Kabambe.
Yes.
Welcome to Farmers of Thought Space.
Thank you so much.
Where we're going to be pushing walls.
Yes.
And I'm not going to spare you for anything.
You don't need to.
Let's start right at the beginning so that we can get this conversation to a nice start. Tell the African audience, and the Malawans in particular, who is Dr. Dalitso Kabambe?
Kabambe Dalitso is an economist who has been working with my government for the past 25 years. He was once a budget director in the Ministry of Finance in Malawi, and also once a governor of the Reserve Bank of Malawi. He was also once Secretary for Foreign Affairs in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs within the Malawi government. Somebody who holds a PhD and master's degree in development economics. Wow. And now has been pursuing politics in the past 4 years. Wow. Now I'm the president of one of the major parties in Malawi called the UTM. I am the president of the UTM party in Malawi.
All right. And what made you leave the other party?
Well, you move on in life, and I decided to move on after gathering some experience in politics for about 4 years. And I thought that I should move on and exercise my right to move on to see that I move on to a different venture altogether. But I'm happy within the UTM, because the UTM is one unique party in Malawi. It has got 3 major fundamental beliefs that they stand on. The first one is a united Malawi. You see, in Malawi, I've had the problems of tribalism, cronyism, and nepotism. So a lot of parties in Malawi have emerged out of tribal codes. They're more or less like tribal parties. But UTM decided to be unique in the sense that it's a united party where anyone from any part of the country is part of that party. But also that in its value system, it believes in ensuring that we treat all Malawians equally, without segregating anyone else. Let merit prevail in everything that we're doing. If there must be a job to be given to someone else, it must be given only to one that has the best merit for that particular job. If you have a contract that you need to run, it must only go to somebody who has delivered the best submission and that to be able to do the best job for that particular contract. So there's nothing like where you're coming from or who you are that should merit you on anything.
Or who are connected to.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But simply out of merit that you get that particular opportunity. And secondly, UTM believes in zero tolerance on corruption. You know, within Malawi and indeed in Africa, there are problems, a lot of problems of corruption, high and rampant corruption.
We'll get to the
yes,
we'll get to the corruption issues a bit later on.
Yes, but UTM stands on that
strong policy.
Absolute zero tolerance on corruption. And finally, as the word suggests, UTM, United Transformation Movement, it's a movement of people meant to transform Malawi, to take it away from poverty to prosperity, from a perpetual hungry country to a food surplus country, a food secure country, and that must be able to feed also the region as well, to turn from a jobless economy into an abundance of jobs for the youth that are coming up within Malawi and indeed within the region. But above all, to ensure that Malawi is a better place for everyone. And that's what UTM stands for. And those are the three values, the three things that attracted me to join UTM party.
I would love to have a general overview of your perspective as to why is it that many, if not most, of the ruling parties, the Mara-Rah governments that come into power and run the countries for the past 60 years, from Kwame Nkrumah right up into South Africa and crisscross, they seem all to be falling into the same pot of having the entire 90% people during liberation running behind them. And somewhere, somehow, we've just seen the loss in Ghana, we've just seen the ruling party, we've just seen the loss in Zambia,
absolutely.
we saw the loss in South Africa, we saw the loss in Botswana. Swapo was what the niche of a button. Zimbabwe, quite a unique space, but also during the reign of Mugabe, it almost, so, but there seems to be this perpetual, and now in Malawi, we're beginning to have this new sage where it's not a phenomenon, it is a reality that is happening. If you could pick up maybe 2 or 3 critical issues, what is it that makes our liberation governments to fail to deliver on the mandate they are given during the liberation night?
Yes, 2 of the reasons that I can say. Number 1 is that yes, indeed, we fought for liberation and we became free, be able to rule over each other and ourselves. But we didn't invest so much in putting together the necessary systems in place that helps us to develop and transform our countries. We live in a global setting where you see other regions, continents are growing very, very fast and rapidly, and they are improving the lives of their people. Not long time ago, in some countries in Asia, you had the largest populations of hungry people. Largest,
China,
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Singapore.
Yes, largest populations of poor people. But in those countries, what you have seen over the past 40, 50 years is that they have quickly developed their economies and they have moved very, very fast to improve their countries and indeed the lives of their people. That doesn't happen in Africa. And we have now generations of people in Africa that are seeing the developments elsewhere, and yet we haven't done the same. That's why you see a lot of youth these days in most of these economies, they're rising up to the establishment because they are challenging the establishments. These are establishments that have perpetually lived behind the days, that they are not able to transform and change their country. And that's why we are seeing the revolutions that are taking place across the continent. And I think even here in Malawi, for the past 50, 60 years, you can see that we haven't moved much. We have, as of now, we have 90% of Malawians still jobless. And then you can't imagine people still be having no jobs. 90% of the population being jobless. You have 75% of people that are still poor. And you also have over half of the population that do not have food. Those are serious challenges that Malawians are experiencing. And yet we have leaders. The question is, what are the leaders doing when 90% they still remain jobless, 75% still remain poor? What are the leaders doing? So the young ones are rising up and challenging that, yes, we may have a youth badge. I mean, like in Malawi today, we talk of 75% of the population being 35 years of age, meaning that they need to work, and yet there's no work to which they can go into. And that's the challenge that we have in Malawi And then the other things that of chronism, this is the small cake that we have, and it must only go to the few people that are there and that are part of the establishments when everyone else is not partaking in that cake. And that's also another challenge with tribal code which has been displayed over the years. But also rampant corruption. We see that that small clique of people, they are so much into abuse of resources for the state, and they concentrate among themselves when everybody else has nothing. And these are, to me, the 3 or 4 major factors that are causing the challenges that we are seeing in the continent. And that's why even here in Malawi, you should expect that the UTM is going to take over government next year, just like that's happened in the other countries in the region.
While you're on that, you mentioned 70% that are not employed, and staggering figures of 50% plus that are hungry and living below the food margin, and etc. My next question will be direct to that. If you are given, as you will pursue this new venture of leading the country, given the country in your hands and the reins of the entire economy in your hands, can you tell us how many jobs you could create as UTM? How will you create those jobs? And what are the 3 most important things that you will do in your first 100 days of office to make sure that the issue of unemployment is identified, it is interrogated, and it is implemented in terms of finding the solutions? What is it that UTM is planning to do in the first 100 days of office to address the very first 3 issues that you've mentioned? Chronism, number 1. 2, poverty and hunger. 3, unemployment.
Thank you so much for that question. I think on the first day, not in the first 100 days, but on the first day immediately, we will adjust our economic policies. The 3 major economic policies that we're going to adjust on the first day. Number 1, the fiscal policy. We will adjust the fiscal policy to make it a right fiscal policy in place. What we now have is an upside fiscal policy.
I'm representing the poor people.
Yes.
When you talk about fiscal policy, you're talking about a fiscal.
It's the budget for the state. Okay. We have to sort it out, because what we now have is a situation where government is perpetually borrowing, and that borrowing is leading to serious challenges and bleeding in the economy. We need to check it on the first day as we get into government, because that borrowing, really, you are borrowing just for extravagances. You are just hiring as many people that you do not necessarily need, that cannot be supported with your budget. You are busy procuring a lot of things that should go along with the people that you have hired, like vehicles, VXs, and so forth. You could not have hired those people, you could not have bought those VXs and so forth. And then also maybe procurements of office equipment and many other things that you have, extravagant things that you're doing, including travels, unnecessary travels, local and foreign. You need to check that. So on the first day, we need to make sure that we have looked at our fiscal policy. How much are we able to raise? How much should we be able to spend? And once we have worked out that, you'll see that you balance up your budget. From day 1, you'll be good to go.
So we've done the fiscus.
So on the first day, you do the fiscal. You also do your mandatory policy. What we now have is an important mandatory policy. So you adjust it to make sure that you have a very important mandatory policy. It should help your economy to stabilize very, very quickly, to bring down inflation as fast as you can be.
What is inflation right now?
Almost 33%. It's 33%. But our target is 5%. So we need to push our inflation to move from 33% within the shortest period possible, maybe 3 to 6 months. You bring it down to single digit towards the 5% target. But you need to work on your mandatory policy to ensure that it addresses that particular issue. Then the exchange rate. On the first day, change your exchange rate policy. You get the right exchange rate policy on the first day. So these are the 3 anchors of any economy. You do the fiscal policy, the mandatory policy, and adjust the exchange rate policy. Once you adjust the 3, within 3 to 6 months, what will happen to Malawi is that you see your economy stabilizing quickly. You have single-digit inflation. You have your kwacha currency stable and reserves growing. You have your interest bank lending rate coming down, maybe also to single-digit, and then you will see that you now have a fiscal space in your budget, which will now start helping you to invest in the necessary sectors of the economy. So once you have done that, the adjustments in the first day, the next big challenge for you or for us and in UTM when we will get into power in the next 8 months, the second thing that we're going to do is to do the right investments in the right sectors of the economy. In Malawi, there are 4 major sectors that you need to deal with. In agriculture, Malawi is blessed with huge water reserves. We have very fertile, good arable land.
I saw quite a lot of tea while I was going up there.
Absolutely.
To the villages there.
And how beautiful is it?
Well, I wanted to stay there. To stay there. That's why I got this in Mulanje.
Yes.
Right up there.
Yes.
Beautiful bananas, pineapples, and etc. And what encouraged me also was to see the amount of fresh foods that are on the side of the road.
And actually, if you had gone further to test them, the taste is quite unique. Very nice for Malawi.
I was given some cassava to chew.
Oh, okay. How was it?
The raw one.
How was it?
It was okay, but we'll discuss the details later.
Yeah. So I'm saying that the first sector in which we need to invest in is the agriculture and the value addition, so that we focus on crops that were growing in these particular areas where they do best.
Yes, sir.
And once we invest in those ones, they may need the irrigation development. We call them mega farms. If we do mega farming in Malawi, do investments in irrigation, and we produce them in abundance, we have factories in there that process those things. We have
products.
We have a lot of foods around. Then we can have canning factories back. We can be processing, whether it's the pulses, we can be processing cotton into when you gin it, into spinning cloth, and then textiles and apparels. But also you can do the same to peanuts, into peanut butter and everything else. So we can process a lot of these crops into their finished products. By the way, Africa imports roughly, I think, about $25 to $30 billion worth of food every year. So if Malawi can produce a lot of this finished food, then what it can do is to make sure that within the country we can do import substitution for those things that we don't need. We may not import, and therefore we can save a lot of forex, but also at the same time we can be able to export within the region and meet the demand that they are importing maybe from outside the continent. We can supply. So with proper investment in the agriculture and the value addition, we can do a lot out of that. Our projection is that if we can be putting in the budget between $200 to $500 million every year to invest in these value chains, then we can transform agriculture and can indeed hire as many youth as possible into the sector. Instead of us now currently we're sending them to Israel, they can be working in their own farms and factories within the country. The second major area we need to invest in is that of livestock and fisheries. Part of the country, we have a lot of cows, a lot of goats, and a lot of chickens and so forth. We need to invest in those as well, so that we can be producing a lot of beef, a lot of meat, milk, and a lot of meat and meat products, skin hides, shoes, and also processing all the various meat products into their finished food items. And if we do that, we can do the same like crops, to do import substitution, but also to feed the region, as it were. Our lake is so vast, we can expand through cage fishing, cage farming, and produce a lot of fish there. And once we produce a lot of those, we can feed ourselves, import substitution, as well as export into the continent. That's the second area where we may need to do a lot of investments. But beneath the Lake Malawi, there's gas and oil. We can also extract, there's technology that we can go in, extract the gas and oil, absolutely, without destroying the ecosystem at all. And once we do that, then with the beneficiation, so we can even process into the final fuel product that we're looking for, as well as the final gas product that we're looking for. That would do import substitution, but also would help in exporting into the region if we like. But also the third and fourth area is that of mining in general. We have a lot of precious minerals across the country, from gold to diamond to graphite to uranium to
uranium. Don't speak loudly about uranium. You may just attract some interesting visitors.
We'll need to find a way of dealing with that particular issue, but. We can do a lot. Actually, in terms of mining, we are thinking that if we're also going to invest about $200 to $500 million every year in mining, we can do up to 10 to 15 mines that have already done exploration. All that is remaining is to do investments in those mines. So if we bring in investments coupled with the private sector investments in there, then we develop those mines. I can guarantee you a lot of youths will find jobs. Currently, most of them are traveling into the region to find jobs within the region. But if we do that, many Malawians would be able to find jobs. But also, I'm glad you went to Mulanje Mountain. The fifth area that will need to do a lot of investment is in the area of tourism. Actually, the entire lake shore in Malawi, and then around Mulanje Mountain, we have Kick Range the other side. We have so many beautiful places that we have. We have some game reserves, national parks. If we also invest between $200 to $500 million in the tourism sector to develop the roads, develop the hotels, develop everything around the amenities within the tourist attraction areas, we are going to attract as many visitors as possible into these places. I was shocked one time that our colleagues in the region, including Rwanda and others, they get tenfold the tourists that Malawi get. But because we haven't developed our tourism sector, if we were to develop it, we will attract also as many who have a fair share of attracting these tourists into Malawi. And that would bring us a lot of forex, would bring us a lot of jobs, would ensure that the country is producing a lot. So the final and 56th area is that of manufacturing. Manufacturing today is all about assembly. All world over, whether you're assembling a car, you're assembling an airplane, you're assembling a phone, you're assembling a bulb or whatever, it's all about assembly, TV and everything else. We can do the same assembly. Our colleagues in the region are also doing venturing into manufacturing. China and India are good at assembling everything. I think it's high time that Africa also go into mass production so that we become a major production center of many of the goods and items that are sold globally. We can easily get the technology, bring in the necessary equipments, and start doing those things in Malawi. And we can be producing those. So the question of addressing joblessness, which is 91%, that can be completely eradicated, that we can have full employment in Malawi, where every single Malawian, anyone who wants a job, would get a job in any of these industries and any of these sectors. That is the future that we are looking for. So when you ask me, when you get into office, what are the 2 or 3 major things that we're going to do? Number one is to sort out the macroeconomic framework, so that we have an economy of single-digit inflation, where the budget is stable, where the reserves are growing, where it's providing a conducive environment, interest rates are down for private sector investments. Then secondly is invest in these major sectors of the economy. And finally, thirdly, which we'll do within the 100 days, is to make sure that we eliminate corruption. Because without dealing with the scourge of corruption, then anything else you do, you go nowhere. It's like a bucket which is open there, and you put in water. No matter how much amount of water you put in, the water will not fill up because there's corruption. So we need to address comprehensively the problem, the scourge of corruption, and make sure that we seal off all the loopholes. Once we do that, then we can be assured that the economy is going to move forward.
No, I'm glad you worked in the Reserve Bank, and the economy is on your fingertips. The Malawians can trust the economy to the Reserve Bank manager, who is now coming to become the leader himself. But while you're on that, I want to add number 7, just as a small little tip on the side. The program and the ideas will work, make no mistake. But at the percentage of unemployment and poverty, we may want to put pillar number 7, which becomes education and training. So there will be, under the new president, a boost in tourism, there will be a boost in mining, there will be a boost in agriculture, there will be a boost in manufacturing, and there will also be a boost in fisheries and stuff like that. So back to back with the vision of UTM, then the population will need to respond to the main agenda items. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a train that is moving so fast towards this future, and yet the people who must now participate into these programs are not academically skilled to begin to participate in meaningfully. You might not be able to attract expatriates again, and we're back in the same box again where foreign companies are coming to loot the system. So that is a suggestion, it's not a question, that while we are pushing for these economic reforms, we must not forget the importance of training and development in assembling and all those skills, so that by the time you put the program on the table, who could harvest from our local markets to feed it.
Can I comment on that? It's a very, very important issue because you'll be surprised that in Malawi, over half of the population are below the age of 20. Over half of the population. We are 20 million Malawians, 10 million Malawians are below 20 years of age. So the most important thing for this population is education and skills development. So that sector is vitally important that we put the right resources into that sector. But also let me shock you again that over 75% of the population are below the age of 35, meaning that almost 3/4 of Malawi are a working group that needs to be working and either being in education and then working and so forth. But surprisingly, when we look at the skills side, only 5% of Malawians have gone to tertiary education. Only about 10% have gone to high school. 75% of Malawians do not own any qualification, as it were. So the extent and the magnitude of the need to train Malawians into various fields of expertise and the learning to be scientists of various fields and areas, it's very, very important. So whilst we are growing the economy, we need to recoup a lot of returns from those investments in the growth into the education sector to ensure that half of the population is prepared to be better, well-skilled and well-equipped for their jobs as they get into the job market. But equally true, even those that have just that between 20 and 35, that do not have any qualification at all, unskilled per se, we will need to skill them in various areas. And when you look at these kinds of jobs, if we go into agriculture and value addition, oil extraction and beneficiation, mining and beneficiation, you look at tourism and so forth, they will need some degrees of expertise. Yes, they can accommodate as much unskilled labor as you can, but you also need some skilled workforce to work in the factories that are going to develop. So this is very, very important.
This leads me to a critical question, which I would want you to make a commitment to the nation and to Africa as a whole. You need to shock us and surprise us and look at the education curriculum head on.
Absolutely.
Like strip it naked. There's no reason why children must be studying William Shakespeare, except if you want to do poetry, theater, and whatever. I'm not saying it's useless, but we cannot be forcing all the children to go through the same colonial curriculum. And here you're coming with a brand new vision of where Malawi will go, but the software that you have been massaging is still producing who killed Julius Caesar.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned of Venice and quotations and etc. So it may mean a thoroughly radical Chinese, Japanese model where skills development, engineering, agriculture, sewing, knitting, carpentry are not just tertiary education courses, but they're implemented right from kindergarten.
Absolutely.
And kids, as quick as they begin to be able to use their hands, they could begin to get skilled. Because if you are supposed to wait until you have trained all of them, you need another 15, 20 years. It takes time. But we can push, as it were, the training from an early age. Then we can create a legacy that goes way into the future.
We have MUBAs in Malawi and the other public and private universities, for instance, that focuses on the mining courses. Since we will go into serious mining development in Malawi, we need well-skilled people in that area across the value chain. Absolutely. So you are absolutely right. The numbers currently are quite small, those that are being picked in these public universities and the private universities. We need to expand them. But at the same time, even the areas of expertise, they're so narrow. We need to expand them so that we are able to cover all the areas that will be needed. Instead of us bringing in expatriates from abroad, we need to train our own people into all those areas. We need a lot of machines to run in these factories. We need people to understand all those machines and so forth. As well, they put it in the textiles and apparatus. It's a whole sector that you need various expertise for various areas in tourism, in oil extraction, processing, value addition of whatever it is. You need a lot of well-trained expertise across the spectrum that therefore requires to invest seriously in the educational skills development of our people, and that too is a paramount important area to do.
And while I was driving around today, my eyes opened up to many things. I have a shirt that I got from Philippines that is made out of pineapple fiber. Pineapple. And when I saw all those pineapples, people literally cutting those peels and throwing them on the ground, I said, look at the amount of money. Malawi is so rich. And in the morning when I was sitting in another house and I found mangoes lying around, I said, this is wealth. How can you be sweeping mangoes away? You must make them into pickles, into dried fruits, into juices, but this is the amount of resource.
Actually, what you are saying is true almost on every stone throw in Malawi. We have tomatoes all over the country.
That are
rotting. We have mangoes this time around all over the country that are rotting. We have cabbages. We have onions. A lot of them are rotting across the country. What we need is people who can take all that
and if
process
they let them rot, find a big dustbin in the community where all the rotten stuff is put there, put some pipes and get biogas and let the community cook.
The more reason why we need a lot of expertise and skills. Yes, that some people can skip.
I would like us to move over to another sector that is rather important. And this interview is coming out of my own 1.5 day quick scan. Had I taken a week or two, I would have been able to do a much thorough job. But with the little that I saw, I will need you as the incoming president to begin to share with us information around the health sector. And the health sector in Malawi, almost 30-40% is in private hands. Then the rest of it is in government. But that which is in government, the little bit that I saw, I think you need to address the health sector, right from private to public, and say, what are we going to do to improve the health facilities and the health deliveries for the nation of Malawi. It's quite, what I saw, I would not be able to mention immediately, but there is quite it's a sore thump on your table, and I think it might not fall on the back of the file, because there's nothing you can do to lead sick people. What are you going to do?
One time, when I was working in the public service, I was director of planning and policy in the Ministry of Health. When you look at the 3 or 4 major conditions that Malawians suffer, top on the list is malaria. Malaria is the biggest, is the #1 killer for our children in Malawi. But malaria is quite preventable. In the region, many countries have eliminated malaria. They have controlled completely. There's no malaria in the region. In health, they say prevention is better than cure. Cure is so costly, but at the same time, you lose life as you go into curative processes. What is more important is to ensure that you manage the condition through prevention. So I think once we come back into government, we'll quickly work out a mechanism of controlling or eliminating malaria in the country, so that we are at par with our colleagues in the region. If we do that, eliminate malaria, we would have reduced over 60 to 70% of hospital admissions in our hospitals, because all those admissions, they are largely because of malaria. And once you do that, you free up a lot of bed space in the facilities. You only go in with some critical conditions that would require people to go into the hospitals. We should thank our development partners, in particular the Global Fund, the US, the UK, and others who have financed the HIV and AIDS sector. That too used to be a problem, but now with the treat and test mechanism in place, with test and treat, once you test and then you are on some kind of medication, ARTs, then you are able also to live a healthy life without requiring yourself to go to the hospital. The same also has happened with the TB. That with the TB programs that are being run by Global Fund and others, we are also able as a country to control and manage TB. So those 3 conditions, if you take them out, the other condition will be what are called non-communicable diseases. This is hypertension, then you have diabetes and others. But those 2, with the prevention, you can be able to control them. So all I'm driving at is that when we get into government next year, September, we will focus on prevention. Once we do that, we focus on prevention, the number of cases that end up in the hospital will completely go down, and that will free up a lot of the bed space.
So in one big sentence, I hear you talking
yes,
about prevention.
Yes,
Prevention.
very key. Because once you do that, there are less people that are sick that require to go to the hospital. So the doctors that are there are properly trained and so forth, and they're providing the right services. They should be able to deal with the few people that are going to the hospitals. The infrastructure that we have there, because we have less patients coming in, the resources that we are pumping in would be helpful to help us improve the facility. But also one final point on health is that at some point we did an analysis. We found out that in Malawi, per capita health spending is around $42. $42 per capita health spending per year. It is the lowest in the world because our colleagues in the region, some of them, as high as 3,000 per capita health spending. That's why when you go to the hospitals, you find that there are better hospitals as compared to ours. Across the continent, in developed and rich countries, you can't find that per capita health spending is as high as 33,000 per capita health spending. So you compare 33,000 per capita health spending versus 42. And in the 42, what I established at that time I was working in the Ministry of Health was that the government of Malawi was only putting 10. 32 was provided by donors. So with the 10 per capita health spending against 33,000 per capita health spending, that's why when you went to hospital,
basically Malawians are healthy.
when you went to the hospital, that's why you found whatever you saw. It's because we wanted pumping 10. If you pump in $10 per capita per person per year, that's what you see. So what will be required once the economy is able to grow? You are growing out of all these investments that we are doing. As the country is growing, it means that the GDP of the country is growing. It means that the public resources are also growing out of the taxes that you are able to get from a growing economy. Public spending will increase. That will help address three major areas or four major areas. Number one, it will address the transport sector system. Malawi's transport sector system is very, very expensive. About 50% of production cost goes to transport. So we will need to have better corridors with our colleagues and neighbors in the region so that we can move our products in and out much cheaply and faster. So we need to invest in our public transport sector so we can improve it to bring down the cost. Secondly is the energy. Energy is very, very important. To drive the mining sector, drive the manufacturing, you need a lot of energy. We need to invest in the energy sector so that it also improves the productivity of our factories and so forth. Then the third is the education sector. We invest in the education sector, it will bring higher returns because you have more productive workforce that you are developing along the way. Then the health sector. It's only a healthy society in which you are able to get better returns on investments, and then by investing in the health sector, then you can get those better results. So instead of pumping in $10 per capita health spending, we must pump in more so that we can have better healthy facilities, equivalent those where we see in the region as well as globally. And in that way, we are going to have a better Malawi for all of us.
We have 8 months, if not 9 months, left towards the elections. Why must the nation of Malawi vote for UTM?
Oh,
why?
Wow, three major reasons. Number one is that we have a very, very clueless and incompetent administration in place, unfortunately. And I can say that because, as I elaborated to you, when you look at the economic policy that the country is implementing, they are not fit for purpose. They are pretty bad, upside down. And that's why the economy is not doing well. So we have an incompetent and the clueless administration in place. It must be checked off. I mean, they were hired on the understanding that they will bring in a better government to its people. They did not. Actually, every 5 years, we bring in government believing that they're going to do better things for us. So if that government has failed, there's no reason to keep it in place. It must go. So because it's going to go, the second thing that UTM is better known, it's not a tribalistic party. Whereas most of these are tribalists, they believe in cronyism, they believe in nepotism. We want to end that scourge. Actually, because of that, you hire less competent people simply because they come from your village. They are related to you. They are associated with your part. And you hire them to a position that doesn't fit them. In the end, you don't see results. For UTM, it's only going to hire people based on merit. That's one of the reasons why UTM must be voted into government. It will change the status quo. Actually, I relate the issue of tribalism and nepotism to what we had to do away with the colonialists. To say we didn't like colonialism. I would also say we don't want tribalism. That's another fight that we must do to ensure that there are no more tribalists around. We must have a Malawi for all, where there are equal opportunities for all Malawians and everyone else. And then thirdly, why UTM must be voted into government, it wants to take away, root out corruption. Actually, when you look back, almost each and every administration has been perfecting the evil of corruption to such an extent that today the government or public sector procurement system is a criminal enterprise. That every single procurement that you can get in the public sector, you must pay something, you must pay a bribe, and someone must get a cut out of it. It's that bad. That corruption is very, very rampant in Malawi and I hope also in other countries. So that needs to be rooted out. That's the reason why people must vote for UTM into power. And the last one, the fourth, we are people who believes in transforming the nation, to root out poverty, take out hunger situations, take out the underdevelopment, ensure that Malawi changes from food insecure nation to a bumper harvest country, from a poverty situation to a well and rich country, from an underdeveloped and a country where there's no future and hope for anyone, to a country where there's a future to all Malawians, a future which is the hope for all Malawians, a better Malawi to all. Those are, to me, the four powerful reasons why Malawians are going to vote for UTM into government. And by the way, the next interview, you're going to interview me also as President of the Republic of Malawi.
I will have an interview with you after the inauguration, but I will want to promise the Malawians and the Africans that I will be watching your growth and your deliverables as we go along on the side, not as an enemy, not as a friend, but as an objective person who is interested in what you have promised the people. The social contract must be maintained, because corruption can only be in terms of taking money. Corruption is also when you promise people things and you don't deliver them.
Absolutely.
And I want us to move on into some bit of regional politics.
Yeah.
And we were better friends with Malawi and Zambia when the white man was amongst us. This is during times of Rhodesia, where Zimbabwe, Malawi, and Zambia had a very cordial relationship. As a result, we have a huge population of Zimbabweans in Zambia, with a huge population of Malawians that are in Zimbabwe, and with a huge population of Zimbabweans also and Zambians that are in Malawi. But it looks like Malawi, for some strange reason, for some strange unknown reason, has not been a good cordial friend in terms of this SADC pact that we have. I would like to maybe ask a very personal question. In terms of your administration, what are you going to do as UTM to make sure that, because you're going to be dealing with liberation parties that are still in the wings of the region, what are you going to do as Malawi to try and cement the relationships? Because the markets that you're talking about, the products that you're talking about, the services that you're talking about, before we can talk about tourism in foreign places and etc., training and education, professors to train and etc., we will need to have some amount of a regional, SADC relationship. So I would want to find out from your own self, what are you going to do to cement and develop and improve, particularly Zimbabwe and Malawi? We would thank you very much for sending us some maize during that few months. We were starving, and I remember lots of trucks came from here to bring us food. But it cannot just be for food. We can do far much more.
I entirely agree with you. I was once PS Foreign Affairs. I was the top diplomat for Malawi in Foreign Affairs. And you're absolutely right that for many years, our foreign policy, we have looked far instead of looking within the region. And yet, in practice, we do a lot within the region. Trade, in terms of Malawian exports and imports, the largest places where we export our products is within the region. The largest place we're getting our imports is within the region. Actually, South Africa is our biggest importing country. We import a lot from South Africa. We export a lot within the region, as you rightly put, within the region. That's where our market is. And as I say, in Africa, we are importing over $20 billion worth of food every year. if we only concentrated on trade among us, and actually,
just on the food, for the food alone.
And actually, when we are exporting outside Africa, there are what are called tariffs and the administrative instruments in place that stops any finished products coming from the African continent into their regions, into their continents. They want only Africa to export raw materials, to export cocoa beans, to export coffee. And yet the chocolate that is the final product from this must be produced elsewhere. So you are sending value, you are sending jobs, and the price for which they fetch a very, very high price when the raw prices, the raw products are bought at a very, very giveaway price. So our farmers and our people are losing out by sending to other continents where we are getting these tariffs. By the way, these tariffs make our products even so much, much cheaper in that way. But if we can produce the final finished products right here, if we're doing cocoa, let's go all the way to chocolate, and then we trade among ourselves. Instead of any one of us importing chocolate from Europe, we make it ourselves and sell within the region. So it's very, very important. Rather than looking up to other countries outside, far away from us, we look among ourselves. What is it that country A or B are importing? Can we gain experience in producing that and trade among ourselves? So we can do a lot because transaction costs are going to be down, transport costs are going to be down, and as we ship between our countries, it's going to be easier, faster, and the prices and costs will be down. That's the first important reason why we must come together and look at ourselves much better than we look at ourselves in the past. The second thing, we need to develop the corridors. If you go to Europe today, you find that people can fly between one country and neighboring country. One that trains, high-speed trains between the two cities, buses and so forth. We need to do the same. For me to fly for example, to Harare, I have to go to South Africa first, and then move maybe to go to Addis Ababa, and then come to Harare. What is that? We should be able to find
the cost.
The cost is too high. The cost is too high. But through economic integration between our countries, we can formulate proper corridors where we can use high-speed trains as well between Malawi and Harare. 1 hour over there, proper transport routes, proper corridors that we have all known that we can do that corridor, we can do that corridor. We will need to develop those corridors so that we can trade better, we can move better. And also, we have the best tourism within the region. Some places in neighboring countries, there's Victoria Falls, there's Kilimanjaro Mountain. We need to be going to
there's a Mulenge.
Absolutely.
I just found a new favorite.
Yes. So we can go to each other's countries in order to promote tourism among ourselves. That we can do, but also schools. Instead of sending our children to study all over the world where they study things that may not be relevant to us, why not have schools that are more relevant to our knowledge and things that we do in the continent, and that we can then be training our children, young ones, between our countries and so forth, instead of sending them far away to distant countries.
For a cost.
Very, very high cost actually, when we could have done
for the same cost of corrupt money.
Absolutely.
Because the big boys can afford. There's medicine there.
Absolutely.
They can afford shopping.
Absolutely.
They can afford schools there.
Absolutely.
But the poor people can't.
Absolutely.
I want you
including medicine as well, health sector. We see people sending people to far away.
India,
we can have
China.
centers of excellences of medicine within, and we can be sending them within us. So, in terms of our foreign policy, when we come into government next year, we will ensure that we integrate very, very well. Malawi integrating very, very well with its neighbors in SADC, in the region, with the Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Zambia, and indeed moving across the region.
I want to isolate two issues, and I want you, and I want the whole of Africa to put you on the spotlight. The African Union monster that has been a nuisance to African development for the longest of time. Wars have been raging on the continent, and yet we have a mother body that sits. I wish NATO was African Union, because when they don't like Saddam, they do something about it. When they don't like, of course we know it's America, but when they don't like something, they at least act. I would like you to commit to the nation your conversation, particularly number one, in silence the war in Congo. Number two, what will be your conversation around the brewing problems that are in Mozambique? And I think Somalia and etc. could be slightly far, but you being a head of state, you may have to carry some of these sentiments with you right there, that there is no war in Congo, there's business in Congo. And from the times of Leopold in the 1800s to date, there's no day in Congo where a person is not dying and guns are not blazing. And maybe the good question would be, what will Malawi possibly be prepared to do, and the region, to help us silence, particularly the wars in the African continent, number one. Number two, on the issue of coherent and combined business strategy, advice or question, I don't know how you're going to take it. In America, for example, you have Ryanair, which is a Swiss or whatever European-owned airline, which services whole of Britain, France, where is this sickness of Malawi Airlines? Then Malawi has 2 aeroplanes. Zambia Airlines, Zambia has 2 aeroplanes. Zimbabwe Airlines, Zimbabwe has 1 aeroplane. What happened to Humwe? We call it Humwe in Shona, where if I'm plowing in my field, I call my neighbor, bring an ox. I call my neighbor, bring a plow. I call my neighbor, bring us some maheu, traditional brew, bring us some sweet potatoes, and we all put it under a tree. We work in the field. We come and we eat together. Is it possible, even in your imagination, that maybe 3, 4, 5 countries that are in agreement, each one can contribute X, and we can have a pool of aeroplanes that can just service the region, and you guys can remain doing your business on the other side? I'm saying those 2 questions. Last one will be a comment, but the first one is the Congo one, which is very sore to my heart. And 3 is meaningful cooperation to solve some of the problems you're talking about. Because even if you're talking about railway lines, your railway line stops at the border of another country. So if the country that side will not participate, you're done. All that investment. So these strategic conversations I'm talking, that we can look at how we can manage the air, and manage the land, and manage the water, could actually be working as a solution. So I'm asking that question in a very subtle way, but what are you going to do about Congo?
Yeah, what I would say there is that when you look at Africa and where we're coming from, we fought the struggle for independence, and indeed many countries went through that, and we are past post-independence, and indeed we have seen some eruptions of these incidences in some countries. We need to be honest with each other. I think going down to the root of the root causes of these disagreements, and see what best can be done in terms of diplomacy to end these wars. People need to talk, and it needs to talk frankly and candidly. Get down to the real issues. It's not right for people to die because politicians are failing to agree on particular areas, and you would then.
And sometimes we wish politicians themselves could die.
Absolutely.
Instead of the people.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. That's why diplomacy is very, very important. We need to enhance the process of the diplomatic resolutions to our conflicts in the continent, in the region. It's very, very important. As I said, one time I was Secretary for Foreign Affairs, and I used to sit in those meetings that discusses many of these conflicts. And when you look at those conflicts, and sometimes you say, but why are you not budging on these areas? You find somebody sitting on a corner fighting on something small and still fighting, and yet people are losing their lives because you are sitting on your point, which you still just want to make sure that point goes through. It is important that sometimes politicians, when we sit, we must candidly tell each other the truth and be able to resolve our problems so that no one dies. We must indeed silence the guns. We must make every effort as leaders to ensure that each and every country, there are no wars in Africa. We should do our way. We need to focus on how we improve the lives of people in our regions and countries and the continent as a whole. And then coming to your second question, in economics we talk about specialization, economies of scale, and so forth. It's just as sometimes we fail to understand, why would you still want to maintain an airline that is making losses? People just getting the obsession, keeping an airline or keeping a business simply to have your country's name there, just because you want that country's name to be there, when actually you can do away with that. Many countries in the world, they've done away with that. This is loss making. It's not our business. We shall move on, allow others to come and run this business. We shall run that one. We shall do that one. We shall do that one. Let's focus on what we are good at. where we can get economies of scale, we can specialize and continue to make profits, and be able to do that thing, allow your neighbor to do that other thing, allow the other neighbor to do that. If we do that, in that way, we're going to enhance our productivity as a region and as a continent.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. I'll bring you to this other corner where I am now interested in, last but not least of our questions. What are we going to be doing about our cultural values? I'm saying so because for the past couple of years, Africans have been duped by academicians who come around and speak lots of English. They write lots of beautiful strategies, and they put on lots of beautiful clothes and gowns, and they parade their academic astuteness. But come to the place where they must apply their knowledge. We've been very disappointed, particularly as young African people, in the hands of the educated people. And hence it calls me even back to say, our traditional leaders, uneducated as they are, in some certain cases, they're even much better than these educated, proliferated academicians. So what am I going to do about our cultural coherence? I'm saying so under indigenous knowledge system, IKS, because there are some solutions in the IKS which we can find. We can find. One is the issue of health, for example, that we can, to couple up with our medical and Western technologies. If the service delivery of medicine and health sector is so low, it's almost obvious that you have almost 30 to 40, 50% of the people who can't even access the roads, the transport, let alone the hospital, that they might end up having to resort into our indigenous pharmaceuticals, which are the bushes and forests. And in the midst of that, maybe in terms of a government policy, I'm looking at China, I'm looking at India, where I have directly been able to interact, where you enter a hospital and you are given an option. Do you want to go the Western route? Do you want to go the indigenous route? And they've been able to pull out their indigenous medicines to such a level of university, and it can be put in lights and theaters. And so maybe in terms of the policy, sometimes we always look far and think that solutions are that far. I mean, when are we going to have our cassava aphrodisiac being sold on the mainland? I'm just poking that one.
Yes.
As UTM,
yes,
would you also want to consider the issue of indigenous knowledge systems as one of the contributing factors to the solutions of Malawi?
Yes, let me answer you in 3 possible ways. The first one is about the harmful cultural practices and norms. I think we come from a background in Africa where some cultural beliefs are literally harmful. So we need to isolate those ones and see, like girl child mutilation, which was rampant in the past, but we have done away with that.
And in the West now we have sex change in a civilized form. So while we're demonizing the other,
I'll focus on so there have been some harmful where maybe a parted friend and then a relative comes in and sleeps with the woman. So there are some cultural values, some cultural things, beliefs that are really bad. We need to isolate all those and completely do away with them. We don't need them. That's the first part. The second part, which I wanted to comment on, is there are some beautiful values that are within us as Africans. Sometimes we go into copying too much from everybody else that want to be like everybody else. When actually we're doing away with some very good value systems that we have harbored for many years. We also need to isolate what are some of the good values and beliefs that we have lived with for many years and stick to those ones and continue to build on those rather than simply copying everything that we get from elsewhere. The third part, I think, is this element that, as I said, I was once director of planning and policy in the Ministry of Health. That I saw in China, that in China, you would have conventional medicine and also you would have another window, or whether you have the other kind of medicine that they use, herbal and so forth. In the Malawian setting, we also have that. At one point, we wanted to analyze and appreciate. I think what we need to do, in my view, is more research on those methods now. If they say these two can treat malaria, by using this unconventional method, we need to understand how does it work out.
Does it work?
Because sometimes they just give you certain things without proper measurements, and it can lead to other problems in your body. But we need to understand, sometimes they lie, our colleagues, they lie that this can do this, when actually it can't. We need to do more research. We need to open up universities that studies those.
You have hit the nail on the head.
Yes, that studies those to understand. So that if indeed we can prove them, then we can even develop business models around it and feed the rest of the world. So look, you are struggling with this condition, but there's cassava here which can treat your problem here. Let's try it, and we can do it this way. It will address your importance, as it were, or try this, so that once we do that, we can develop the various businesses around that line of thought as well.
Last but not least, in the next 30 years, from some research and statistics that is out there, one of the most expensive commodities on the face of the earth is going to be water. The wars that are happening around the world are resulting in nuclear weapons, are resulting in contamination, air pollution, land pollution, human annihilation, and talk about countries going back to Nagasaki and Hiroshima once this battle of Ukraine, Middle East. And I cannot say so, but as an African, I'm not scared that for the first time, the white men and the Arabs are killing each other after having enslaved us for all these years. Finally, the chickens have come home to roost. The thieves are now shooting each other. But that's the preamble. The real issue is that when they are done with what they are doing, water will be one of the scarcest commodities of the face of the earth. And while you're on that, Malawi holds one of the second largest lakes on the continent after Lake Victoria. And the question is, as UTM, what are you going to be doing in terms of preparation and projecting yourself into that next economy where water is going to be more expensive than oil?
Yeah, what I also tell you is that whilst we hold indeed the third largest lake in Africa, freshwater reserve in Africa, we have also plenty of rivers. I think when you look at map of Malawi, sometimes you can't see how it is, but we have the high altitude areas one side, and then we have plains
I saw
in the
lots of
middle,
them. I saw lots of them today.
and then you have the lake on the other side. So what happens is that the water comes from the mountains and then goes into the plains and then goes into the lake. What you haven't seen, and this is what I'm going to tell you about Malawi, is that we have done wanton cutting down of trees. There's been a lot of deforestation to the extent that most of the mountains that you now see, they're completely naked.
And they're rolling stones now?
Some 20, 30 years ago, there were a lot of trees, natural trees that were there since creation. A lot of them were covered in green coverage and so forth. So all these rivers had water and flowing nicely into the lake. But today, we have cut down all those trees, and there's been a lot of siltation. A lot of all those rivers now, they are filled with the sun. Now they're dying away. That's a serious challenge we have created by us. So as UTM, we want to go back and recreate what we have lost, to make sure that all the green plantations which are covering our mountains, they cover all our mountains.
You are talking about reforestation.
Reforestation programs, running big reforestation programs so that the trees get back, and then we sort out the rivers so that tomorrow, when they have killed indeed each other that side, when they want water, we should have it in abundance.
Let's make a deal.
Yes.
That in the first year of your presidency,
yes,
we will have 20 million trees. Every Malawian must plant a tree.
20 million is on the lower side.
I am just giving.
We need to do more. Yes.
That's fine. But we can share.
That's an agreement. That's an agreement. We need to do that because we need that for the sake of this country and for the sake of our future generations.
Yeah, because I saw the disaster there when the rains came and had the trees been there.
Yes.
Those rocks.
Absolutely.
We supported. Now we are you're looking for firewood.
Absolutely. But you know why people do cut those trees? They cut them because they have to survive. They survive on the area where they are coming from, where they are. And you cannot just stop them by arresting them and thinking that you're going to stop this. You would not. what is important, once we have invested in agriculture and value addition, in mining, tourism, manufacturing, and so forth, these people are going to get better paying jobs. They will stop, and also we have only 10% of Malawians that are on the grid, that have electricity. And now they're using firewood for all their energy needs. But you can't just stop them because you can't provide them electricity. What you need to do is ensure that everybody else is on the grid, everybody else has a better job, that they no longer have to rely on the tree to cut a tree for their energy, to cut the tree to sell, to get income. Once they have stable income and they're doing better, they will not just cut it. That's why when you go to the West, you find that no one is interested in cutting the trees because they're well off. For Malawi, for us to address and put on check that problem, let's ensure that every single Malawian who needs a job finds a job, and not just a job, a better paying job that makes them have a better livelihood. They'll stop cutting down trees.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And I think maybe part of our agreement includes that every community must have a forest.
Absolutely.
Along the rivers.
Absolutely.
And particularly when it comes to the mountains we need to literally create a wall.
Absolutely.
That would hold.
You can see how beautiful they are. And imagine if all of them, all the mountains are covered in green. And imagine you're seeing those rivers nicely with the clean water.
I took a shower. I bathed in the river.
You did?
I did.
Clean
water.
In Palombe? In Mlanje. Oh, wow.
I went to the river, clean water.
You took off your clothes?
I bathed. I bathed in the river. It was such refreshing. So
that's amazing. And we look for
there's a time
when
Africans would go to the river and drink.
Yes.
There's a time when we would walk into the forest and leave.
We need to bring back, by the way, within 5 to 10 years of our administration, we would have covered all our mountains and would have recovered all our rivers and make the country beautiful again.
Forestation good, agriculture good, policy, you have presented it, media and human rights. Any comment on that?
Well, I think recently we had a situation in Malawi where there was media, where there was oppression of rights of the people to demonstrate. There was heavy police presence to crack down on anyone else expressing their right to demonstrate on something that they like. Again, that's what we've seen, which is very, very bad in the case of Malawi, because we've always believed that since 1994, when we had the new constitution in place that provide all the rights and freedoms that we have, for somebody really to go after such was not right. We had to fight against that. But similarly too, we have seen some journalists being arrested just for doing their own job of media, journalism and so forth. Again, that space, it's not right. We need to ensure the guarantee the rights of all our people, including the journalists, media rights, including as well.
The last question I have for you is on how many terms would you need in office? How many years would you need in office if all things being equal? You can say, I'm going there, I'll do my job, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I walk away from stage.
Because I'll do a very good job in the first term, Malawians are going to give me a second term.
Let's leave that to them.
Absolutely. And the constitution provides for 2 terms, and therefore, I will do a good job in the first term. They would want me just to make sure that they have completed.
You have an opportunity to address the nation and encourage them to come and vote, and you are going to be the unifier. Your enemies, the oppositions are all going to become part of the citizenry. I would want you to make a statement to the nation telling us how you are going to lead this nation and how you are going to foster to make sure that even the opposition people that are coming into the election with you are also protected, and how best are you going to be working on a strategy to unite Malawi towards their common goal?
Malawi is at a crossroad. When you look at it, there's rampant corruption, economic policies are upside down, Malawians are suffering, we have 90% of our people jobless, 75% that are poor, over half that do not have food. It's a scary situation. When you go to hospitals, there are no medicines, infrastructure is deteriorating each passing day, the roads and other places. Malawi is at a crossroads. We need to change the government come next general election. We believe that the reasons why we find ourselves in this situation is that there's rampant corruption, there's too much tribalism and nepotism and cronism, where people that are being hired into various positions are not hired on merit, but rather on a tribal code. But equally true, that if they don't deliver, nothing happens to them. Contracts, government, and other parastatals are given to only cronies, and so forth. And this has affected delivery of public services across the board. But equally true, Malawi needs to change. We have a youth batch that needs to see their lives improving, and we can only do that if we change government next year. UTM is promising a government where tribalism has been eliminated, everything is on merit. Is promising a government where corruption has been rooted out, and that every dollar that is spent in the economy is spent very, very well, but also is pledging the economic transformation of our country, so that we turn around Malawi from a perpetual hunger country to a food secure nation, a country that is able to produce and feed for itself, that is able to develop its agriculture and agro processing to all the way to finished products, so that we can sell within the country and also within the continent, and we're able to create as many jobs as possible to our youth. So that's what UTM is promising Malawians, that let's come out, register in large numbers, and let's go out on the day and vote for a UTM government that's going to bring a better Malawi home.
He who fails to plan has planned to fail. The youth are not the leaders of tomorrow. The youth are the leaders of today. Through their votes, the leaders that they put in power will make policies that will affect them and their children. And as a result, we are encouraging all the young people to identify each other, the educated community, young and old, the technocrats that are out there. You cannot always be working in silos and feeding the same old system of retirement generals who wants to sleep in parliament. It's time that we allow some of the non-functional, respectfully so. They must retire gently. They must sit in their homes, look after their grandchildren, and etc. Because the parliament is not a place where people go and sleep. We no longer need comrades with guns and to go into fighting. We need a new type of war. The war of the intellectuals, the war of the thinkers, the war of the technocrats who will have both the skill and the passion to transform this country to become a better country. Africa as a whole is waiting for you as young people to stop complaining about what the old people are doing, but get up on your feet and go and start transforming the very environment that you're going to be living for. What is the use of leaving old people to plan the future for us when they will no longer be there to live in that future? With those few words, I want to encourage all of you in Malawi, in the region and beyond, to say let us all participate in the political system and transform the policies and the governance of our systems so that they can be favorable towards the development that we need. And together as Africa, we are looking forward to the united Africa, where every country, as we call it now, becomes a province, and Africa becomes our country. With those few words, I want to thank you, Honorable Dr.
Thank you so much. Thank
for
you so
sparing
much.
some time talking to us and to the nation. Yeah. I look forward to the inauguration, and I look forward to a post-mortem.
Thank you so much.
In your first day, 100 days of office, please, I would want you back on this chair.
Absolutely.
Come and catch up again.
We will talk that time. Thank you so much.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Asante.
Thank you.
Chabwino mtima ndi tunakondolo kwambiri kuona Nyamata Kabambe,
yes,
right here in Malawi as we are discussing. Thank you very much. Until we meet up again, stay away from trouble. Don't do what I would do, but if you do it better.